What's going on, everyone, and welcome to Spiral Out Podcast, the podcast where we talk about music and movies, merch and memorabilia, artists and art, collections and the collectors. I think I got that right. And we also talk about Tool and Tool-related subjects, the Tool universe. I think I'm going to start calling it the Tooliverse. Tooliverse. I like it. It's going to catch on. So today is a huge landmark episode. We have our first poster artist, Alex Kuno. He did the February 2nd, 2022 poster for San Antonio. This guy is awesome. He was super cool. He took a chance on the podcast before it was even a podcast, came on the show and did an amazing job. I will be forever grateful. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Alex Kuno. Stay tuned for after the episode for some updates and a little bit of news. I'm going to start doing that. Spiral out. Angels on the sideline again, waiting for Alex Kuno to answer the phone. Alex on the sideline again, wondering when this ringing will end.
Oh, hey.
Alex Kuno, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm extremely excited.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. And the congratulations is partly you because you said yes.
Oh, well, well, there you go. What made you start to want to do this?
Oh, you're turning it around on me quickly. This is supposed to be about you.
Oh.
No worries. I've been a Tool fan for a very long time.
Yeah.
Late 90s or so. A lot of my friends were into it. I never joined the online community, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I previously had a podcast that was based around mental health and human services.
Oh, okay, cool.
I went to a Tool show in San Diego in January and met a really cool guy who was connected to these groups, and he kind of showed me what was going on, showed me the prints, started explaining all the different artists. And I had a few, I just didn't realize how in depth it was.
Right.
And it just hooked me. And I'm the type of guy where when something hooks me and it doesn't happen often, I go full in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It seems like you would kind of have to in that community. I would imagine that if you're already interested, I can totally see how that would have a way of just absolutely sucking you in.
Yeah.
So it's cool that you are this new into it.
Yeah, I'm pretty new, and I kind of did the same thing with my other podcast because I wasn't, I have my own mental health stuff and whatnot, but I more wanted to learn, and I guess this is how I do it. I get people to start talking.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Thank you for asking.
Well, sure. It's always really interesting to learn more about the people in this community because it totally shocked me that this thing even existed at all. Everybody has their own really particular, really personal story about what drew them into the groups and what got them involved specifically in collecting this specific thing. It's been really fascinating.
It's very niche, but it's huge. Everybody's really interested on the poster process, how they get chosen, why that print, how many prints do you get?
Well, yeah, I can talk about how I got involved in it.
Please.
I've been a full-time artist for maybe about 15 years, just kind of doing my own oil paintings and watercolors and occasional freelance, some album cover work, little things like that, some illustration projects. I think just over the years, I've gotten some kind of a big Instagram following, and then I saw that the guitarist Adam Jones, he started following me on Instagram, and then he's bought some of my paintings here and there over the years. And then before they went on tour, he just DM'd me and asked me to do a poster for him or for the band. And I was like, oh, wow, that's really, really cool. Maybe I'll get to see my poster every once in a while if they come through Minneapolis or something. That's kind of what I thought. And I jumped at it. Everybody, like from the label who I contacted or who I was in contact with, they were all very cool. And it was a really smooth, easy process. I sent them the image by the deadline and then I immediately forgot about it. And because I was just focused on my own deadlines. When they said, as like part of the payment, we'll be able to send you some t-shirts and some posters you can do with whatever you want. And I was like, oh, well, that's a nice little perk. Like maybe when I have a show, like maybe one day I'll post my studio for like local art crawls and open studio events like twice a year. And so I thought, well, that'll be nice. I'll have some extra prints to show. I thought zero.
You have no idea.
Zero idea. I had no concept. Hey, they threw 24 shirts at me and some posters or 50 posters.
Oh yeah. So that's,
and one of these days, I might be able to sell them for $50 a piece or something. That'll be nice. And then, and then that's when I was like, okay, all right, they were actually really,
yeah, they were. That's a lot.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask this,
what any of it was like.
I'm gonna ask this quick question real quick. So when the poster was released, how crazy did your DMs get? What did it just explode?
Well, that was another thing too. It was because so my deadline for the poster was November 1st. I put it in, immediately put it out of my mind, and then I'm just kind of a casual listener to Tool, and so I haven't really followed their career that much. And I had heard other people talking about how they were coming to Minneapolis in March, and so I thought, oh, okay, well maybe the poster will be for that show. That's what I had assumed. But I didn't know that it had shown up in February in San Antonio for their show. And so then I kind of got up and I was, working on some projects and running some errands. And then I checked my phone and then it was like, oh, why do I have 500 followers? One of the Tool collectors who was at the San Antonio show showed me a photo of the poster. That's when I got talking to her, and then kind of the weight of this was revealed to me, and then it's been just nonstop since.
It's pretty wild. Did you make this painting specifically for Tool, or was it something that you had previously been working on?
Yeah, I made it specifically for the poster, but my style and my content kind of changes periodically. I'll get kind of a wild hair at my ass about an idea that I want to focus on or a particular way of working that I wanted to do. And so I was into this kind of melty, flowering skin and anatomy and this kind of shifting medical anatomy illustration. I would kind of merge that with other traditional botanical illustration. And so I was just kind of playing around with those ideas. I thought that this poster, it wasn't specifically about Tool necessarily. It was sort of about kind of an ecstatic, melodramatic emotion. So it's not peeling decayed skin, or it's maybe more toward the idea of peeling off old skin and sort of spontaneous transformation or spontaneous mutation or something like that. And I kind of thought, you sort of have that really high, intense emotion, when the favorite part of your song comes on, the drum fill or this particular sound a vocalist makes, something that just kind of changes your whole environment. And so I was focusing on that when I made the poster.
I don't know if you saw, I asked the groups what their interpretation of your print,
that was interesting. Yeah.
Of your print was. And I mean, the first thing that I saw, or the thing I saw the most, was they immediately associated it with a specific song called 46 and 2, which is about, well, I don't know specifically. I don't look up what songs are about. Just me. People are going to hate on me for that. But
right.
I like to have my own interpretation for things. But what that song is known for is, shedding skin and, kind of your DNA, I guess, adding a different chromosome and you becoming new and something different. And,
I see. Okay.
And feeling that, feeling the emergence of the new from inside and
yeah, right. Yeah. I saw that in those comments too, and from some other people as well. I get a lot of comments about my work as being really dark or unnerving or creepy.
I don't
And
see it.
like, yeah, that's true. Yeah, well, yeah, thank you. I see that there as being like a lot of hope in it, or a lot of opportunity for
I completely
healing,
agree.
or yeah. And so I had sold the original to some collectors of mine. It was really moving when uh, the wife the of this collector duo that I was having, she was like, "I'm going to put this in this yoga studio that I run." And she said, "I just see nothing but really positive, healing, healthy vibes from this." And I was like, "Well, thank God." Like that's really nice. Just don't see like somebody ripping their own face off or something. Like you can see and feel like a little bit more nuance. And
What is the name of that print? Does it have a
what is the
name?
name of the painting?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, I never. It's the one thing I never titled. Like all my stuff is pretty narrative. There's always like some kind of a story with that, but I just made that just for that one abstract little emotion for this specific project. So I should have titled it. I never did.
Can I title it?
Yo, please do.
Now I fell on the spot. I would choose, hmm, I, I would call it Dolly for some reason.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, well, one of the remarks that I did, or one of like the custom remarks that I did, someone asked to like add like melting clocks to the figure like Dolly, so that was really nice.
Oh, I didn't mean Salvador Dali. I just meant Dolly. For some reason, it reminds me of
Oh,
Dolly Parton. It reminds me of Dolly Parton. I don't know why.
oh shit.
I'm like Jolene all over this thing. Maybe that's what you should call it.
Well, that's a new one. That's great.
The other one,
Maybe I'll do her next album.
right? The other interpretations that I thought were really interesting was how people related this to food. I heard
To
the painting. I heard ice cream a lot, like it reminded them of ice
oh,
cream. I heard butter.
whoa.
I heard candy.
Hmm.
Ham was one.
Yeah, yeah. I think I might have seen that one.
Fish.
Uh-huh.
Scales. So I for some reason I thought it was really interesting because I can kind of see that as well. Is it weird to have
Yeah.
people analyze your work in depthly?
I suppose it's weird from the perspective of like daily experiences, but like it's so rewarding when people like actually look at the work and then kind of like make up their own idea of what they think it is. Like I said, like my stuff is really narrative. Kind of how I've always seen my paintings is like being a still frame in like a movie or a book that doesn't really have a beginning or an end. So the characters are always they're either just meeting or they just met or they're about to do something to each other or they're like, you're kind of left to wonder how these scenes are sort of put together. So when I would have shows or I would do these open studio events, and then people would come up with like just these completely different interpretations or ideas of what the stories I was conveying.
It's gotta be wild.
That's just so cool, and it's one of the things that sort of keeps me doing that. Or just doing this work on top of the fact that I'm just not qualified to do anything else.
I feel you. I've been in kitchens my whole life,
Yeah, right.
but at least you're doing something creative, right?
Well,
That's gotta be great.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think,
Work is work, but
right, yeah, yeah, exactly. But I think when I was a kid drawing in my room, that was sort of a way to like kind of hide from my parents who were always fighting and sort of a tumultuous home life. And so I would always like run to my room and draw, and that was sort of like the safe space. And then when I was in college and trying to decide what to focus on art wise or just career wise, I would think what would give me that kind of feeling, or what would give me what would give me that same feeling that I had as a kid? How do I translate that? And so then I kind of realized just sort of recently, I thought about those times and I was like, oh my God, I sit in a room in my house and like hide away from the world and process the world through drawing and painting. It's kind of how I see it. And so when other people do see it and then kind of communicate with me about it, it really feels like a valuable kind of connection.
for some reason, I guess that's what they call midlife, but you definitely take a second gander of like, all right, I've been feeling a certain way for a long time. I remember when I was a
Yeah.
kid, it felt nice, What can I
Hmm.
do to get some of that back?
Yeah. I think that's so much of what I don't know how much I should get into it, but it's like that's kind of what I see so much of happening in like pop culture
Oh,
generally.
for
This
sure.
like nostalgia industrial complex. That's kind of what I call it. It's
No, I
it's
get you. I know exactly what you're saying.
well, yeah, like there's so many fucking movies and TV shows of like going, hey, you guys, you remember this? You remember G.I. Joe? You remember comic books?
Right?
You remember Transformers and Star Wars? You remember all that?
Here's a
Wasn't
ch-
that
here's a ch-
great when you didn't have any responsibilities and you didn't have to think about anything and everything was safe and
right.
fine? Oh, look at this familiar character you grew up with, like that kind of stuff. Yeah.
We're gonna put $200 million behind it as well.
Oh my God. Yeah, I know. There's a gigantic industry about it. Like it's overwhelming. And that feeling is like moved into our politics and so much like just everything right now. And so there's something really kind of unnerving and really kind of troubling about that. As like well made as those things are, like you can't make something glitzier and more sleek than like that whole Marvel Comics universe thing. Like you think about like just the army of artists and engineers and special effects people and producers and stuff who put that package together. It's really amazing, but it's kind of freaky how ever present that stuff is.
I think what I'm following, and I can see it as well, is it's almost like I kind of see it as what's that Soylent Green, where they're just like refeeding you old stuff to keep you
Hmm.
in line. And again, I'm a huge movie buff and fan of comic
Yeah,
books, and I love that stuff too. But at the same time, it's like, where's the new Pulp Fiction? Where's the new stuff?
yeah.
Where's the professional, or you know what I'm saying? I mean, I love Marvel
Oh,
movies, but
100%. I
where
yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
where's the new cool shit? Like, I get it.
Yeah. Hmm.
Iron Man,
Yeah.
Spider Man, Batman, they're fucking badass. I'll watch it, take my money. But I
Yep.
also want the new shit, the stuff I don't know
Yeah,
about.
yeah. When your industry of like being a chef, it's like, yeah, McDonald's tastes really good. It's like
But it's bad for
scientifically
you.
designed to taste really good, and it's designed to be nostalgic and make you feel good. But if that's all you eat, if that's all there's available, it's gonna fucking kill you.
And you may or may not have answered this question already, but I'm going to ask it anyways. You have the Miscreants of Tiny Town. It's like your
Yeah.
first series, right?
Hmm.
And those characters kind of were evolving. I was just
Yeah.
curious if this tool painting that became a poster was maybe one of those characters evolved at a certain point, especially
I think
because of
yeah.
shedding skin. Or, I mean, you
Right.
know,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's there's definitely a connection there. That whole Miscreants of Tiny Town thing, I think, really did tie into how I was feeling about nostalgia and connecting it to the real world. It was, I think, like at that time, ISIS was blowing up, or it was like during the war in Iraq and everything. And Bush was saying the evildoers must be brought to justice and saying like these really childlike, kind of oversimplifying statements about what was happening over there and what was going on. Also, that was around the time of like Star Wars prequels, and Lord of the Rings was really popular. Yeah, it was about 2004, 2005. So it was like all that stuff was kind of bubbling up. And while there was some really seriously grim stuff happening in the world, and I was having a hard time trying to connect those two things in my head, and somebody gave me a copy of The Lord of the Rings. I had never read it before, and I read the prologue where they were talking about how the hobbits had evolved, the different species of hobbits, and how some of the hobbits lived by the river, and then there's some who lived in trees and stuff. And like at the time when I was like really getting sucked in the news, I was like, wait a minute, this is all made up. This is all bullshit.
right?
and and I had grown up on sci-fi and fantasy and everything, and so it just kind of like twisted just how I thought about my own work, and so I kind of started this quote unquote Miscreants of Tiny Town series as a way to satirize my own kind of sheltered upbringing, I guess, of like the escape into fantasy and ignoring things, and so I like made up kind of like a as a joke sort of made up like a fantasy land and went, what if the bleep blurps fought against the gloobadoos? And I kind of like made this as a satirical joke, but then the more that I got into it and got more invested in sort of the world building aspects of it, it did turn into this larger thing for me. And it like kind of caught on sort of locally, and I got some international shows out of it. And then that evolution thing, I think all this talk about like global authoritarianism and white nationalism sort of exploding out of, what was happening in Syria and like all these other political things. My work around that time, what I thought were like authoritarian undercurrents in our society was like really ever present suddenly, like with police brutality videos just everywhere, like all this stuff. And so I thought maybe like these innocent little children's book illustration type figures were just spontaneously evolving. And so like their skin was falling off and like these kind of aquatic looking tumors and things were sort of bursting out of them. And so I kind of like made these big abstract kind of still life looking paintings, and I treated them as kind of like I said, like the older botanical illustrations of like early explorers, like colonial explorers going to another land, seeing a flower of this country for the first time, and then trying to paint it, and it doesn't look quite right. That's sort of what I was doing with this explosive kind of mutation project. So yeah, I think like the melting skin figure for the tool poster was definitely an offshoot of that.
How long did it take you to make? Like how long does it take you to paint that?
I let myself take my time with it. I would say working on it here and there periodically over a month, but I think maybe in total amount of hours. I wish I had recorded it a couple weeks, maybe actual sitting down and work time.
I really would. You don't have to say this, but I really would like to know like what it's like to get a direct message from Adam Jones. Again, it's a little bit different. I'm not saying you're not a fan. I'm obviously doing a podcast. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
The gravity of that to me, I'm just like I'd be floored. But beyond that, how much he messaged you at one point and he said the deadline is this. How long was that period? You obviously had to think about. I guess what I'm getting to.
What I wanted to do.
Yeah, mm-hmm. I guess what I'm getting to is like I'd really like to know the emotions of before you made it and what you were thinking about and how you're like, all right, this is how I'm going to attack this. What you were thinking about during it, while you were doing it, and maybe how that had changed from obviously when you were getting ready to do it, and then what you felt after it was done.
Interesting. I think, of course, there was the real anxiety and pressure of like wanting to do something well, particularly on that level. You don't want to disappoint Adam Jones, and you don't want to make a fool out of yourself. I think when I made it, I didn't want to overthink it. I think, I think maybe one of the reasons that I said that it took about a month was that there was a lot of doodling and thinking and brainstorming and self-editing and kind of pulling my hair out about what to do. And then eventually, I think at some point, I just went, Adam knows my work, and he at least trusts my work enough to invite me to do this thing. So I'm not at all that I just, stick to what I normally do. Because I really think that I tried a lot of new things and a lot of new techniques in this that I hadn't done before. And so I kind of like forced myself to enjoy working on it and to just kind of relax and just make what I'm going to make and feel what I'm going to feel about it, treat it like a job, and then be done with it and then send it over. Don't take it too seriously and don't overthink things. There have been so many times in my life and just my own work when I would, really focus on every single step and overthink everything and be way too critical of myself. And then that just makes me wind up painting over the whole thing when I'm 2/3 of the way done. It just has to be spontaneous and it has to be kind of intuitive. So I think after maybe the second week of futzing with it, I was just like, I'm just going to start this and do it. And then I don't even remember making it necessarily. That also happens every once in a while, I think, to a lot of artists, where you're just kind of in a zone and your brain goes somewhere else, and then all of a sudden you're looking at a finished painting.
You have this finished painting, that you, like you said, you're in the zone, you're getting it done. It's coming from the ether, right?
Right, yeah.
It's just flowing through you, and then all of a sudden there's this definite tool painting. You're like, it's here, it's done. Then what do you feel?
Then what I feel, I think
about the painting specifically, maybe not the process.
Oh, yeah. That's always kind of a frustrating part because I never know when I'm going to be finished. It's like that old saying, hard work's never done. It's just, you just stop working on it, or however that works. There comes a certain point where if I keep working on it, then I know that I'll fuck it up somehow, or I know that I will make a mistake that would cause way more effort to try to fix. So after a certain point, there's something intrinsic in people who do this stuff where they're like, I'm choosing to be done with this now.
That's a tool poster. And looking at it and then talking to you right now, I'm like, I bet this guy just like made it and was like, that's badass. I'm cool. This is the poster. I'm a fucking badass. And of course it's awesome. I mean, you come up with your own, I mean, you see this piece of art and it's wicked and it's cool and a lot of people like it. And you're like, oh, the person that made that must be a badass. And I'm not saying you're not a badass, but I think it's a little bit refreshing to hear that like everybody has their struggle with whatever it is they're doing at that moment right now.
Oh, that's a whole other podcast, man. I'm telling you, doing the art thing is creative and it's good and it feels rewarding, but it is also work. And I've got to depend on it to pay bills and stuff. I think about that and I work with that in mind.
I'm just going to say this right now. I think you're badass. I think you're a badass painter. I don't know if anybody's ever told you that. You're hearing it from me, and I guarantee you there's 10,000 other people that think you're, or 10,000 other people that think you're a badass painter.
Well, thank you so much. That really does mean a lot. Thank you. Well, one of the comments that I saw when you asked your question on Facebook, in one of the comments somebody said, "This one isn't my favorite."
No, for sure. There's definitely those out there.
Yeah, and I appreciate that so much. I'm like, hey, man, more. Hey, it's not one of my favorites either. I've seen some really amazing stuff on these hero posters.
Yeah. Do you know about like the resale and all that madness?
That I have stayed away from. I'm just focusing on however people do the resale thing. That's theirs.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't even want to know.
Fair enough. We won't get into it. It's wild. I will tell you that.
Yeah. I would think so. To do that for so many other artists around the country, like to use their platform in that way is a really big deal.
Yeah, I mean it's gotta help. I mean, there's definitely some people I looked up where I'm like, I can't even find anything about them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They just got like a couple of cool little things up, and one of them happens to be one of the tool posters.
That's interesting. Yeah. So I mean, they're really helping some artists like really survive. That's incredible.
I guess I didn't understand the gravity on that side either, because you can definitely charge whatever you want to charge for a remark and to sell your prints. And I know one artist sold his for like $150, and that was it.
I know.
And you want to be like, come on. Like even the fans were like, bro, you shouldn't have done that. Like we even know you shouldn't have done that. Like the signed prints at the show are double that.
That's why I when you asked me about the resale, if I wanted to know more about that, I was like, nope. I want to be as grateful as I can to like the other, like those collectors who like introduced me and like said this is more than $50. I just want to be grateful for it.
So, do you do any collecting of your own? Do you like have other artists that you're into as well?
I would love to, and that's something that I really want to do eventually. Like I said, I open my space up for open studio things. My walls are just filled with my own unsold stuff, and I kind of gear the place to having those open studios. One of these days, I really do want to start kind of paying other artists forward for for how generous they've been. And there are a lot of artists that, I would love to have collections of.
If you're listening to this podcast, go buy that art off of Alex Kuno's wall.
Right? I know.
It's again, if you're listening to this, it's and you know this poster, and you know you're interested in the evolution of his work. It's nuts, and it's cool, and it's interesting, and there's these backstories and like you said, evolution of characters, and get out there and buy it. And that's not me ending the podcast. That's just me stating it in the middle right now. Go buy Alex Kuno stuff. I mean, come on.
All right. Thank you so much. Now you can end the podcast.
No, I still got more questions.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, a couple of questions on the back end of the process. Do you get free tickets to any of the shows?
No.
What?
I know. No.
No free tickets? I feel like if they had your poster, you should be able to at least get tickets to that show.
That's at the very least.
At the very least.
One of the great poster artists, Tiny Algae on Instagram, I know that she visited them backstage, or at least visited Adam backstage. I saw one of her Instagram posts about that. But yeah, that did not happen to me.
Boo.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. Do you travel to see their shows? Are you one of those?
One of those. I'm a halfway one of those, and it's very interesting to me how happenstance or serendipitous my involvement in all this is now, because I travel for work. So I was in San Diego for work. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go to the San Diego show. And I went, and that's where I met, people that were into the posters and the artists, and they turned it on to me. And then a couple days later, I'm in Vegas and, have a great time and get into the trading community. And then I was hooked. And then about a month later, I'm like, I got 4 or 5 days off. I'm going to fly to New Orleans. I've never been to New Orleans. So I flew.
Wow.
I got on a plane that night, flew to New Orleans. Next day, I saw the show.
Oh my God!
Walked around the French District, had a great time by myself, awesome. And flew back.
Yeah. Oh my God, that sounds amazing.
And then about a month after that, I'm like, I really want to go to the last 3 shows, and I had already been tinkering with the podcast idea, and I hadn't taken a vacation in like 3 years, so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to the Midwest and see Tool's last 3 shows. I'm going to record talking to people the whole time. Get some prints, and I'm going to start this podcast. I met a lot of people, a lot of really good people, and I also got really into the community, meaning like all the cast of characters. The people are there for the art and the music. The people are there to make money. The people are there to trade. People that go to shows 40 hours in advance, the elite collectors, and, I met a lot of them, just talked to them. Wow. And now I'm here.
Yeah. Congratulations to be in a position where you are able to do that. That is terrific.
I'm not a wealthy man, so it definitely took some credit card stuff, and I'll be paying it back.
Yeah. Right.
You said you did dabble in Tool. Is there a favorite Tool song you have?
I get asked that all the time. I think Sober I hear all the time. I do still actively single out that one. And I know that that's probably like the hackiest answer.
It's not.
But
people on this page, they like every song. They know every song. They love every song. Me personally, I know the whole catalog, and there isn't a song, in my opinion, that you can say that's my favorite song that is hacky. It doesn't really work like that with this band.
Well, that's good to know. I have good memories and associations of that song from back in the 90s. It's made its mark.
It's a good song, and that's a great answer.
Kind of like around the time that you said you got into Tool, like in the 90s.
Sure.
That's when I heard them a lot, and I saw their videos on like MTV and stuff. But around that time, I was way too into like more abstract industrial noise things, where the Throbbing Gristle and Ein Stürzende Neubauten, Skinny Puppy.
I love Skinny Puppy.
Oh, well, yeah, right. And particularly around that time, like the Last Rites, Too Dark Park thing. I was just telling a friend of mine the other day that I still listen to those 2 albums like maybe once a year. Listen to them all the way through, and then just immediately get transported and then kind of disappear. But that's the thing, is like they didn't use guitars. They just made up their own sounds and, manipulated sound effects and stuff like that. I love that a lot. The idea of guitar-based bands was just not on my radar at all. but every time that Tool would be on the music or would be on the radio, I would just kind of stop everything and just sort of listen to that. So I've always really respected them and really liked them.
I want to talk about remarques. Because in my opinion, remarques are kind of like remixes of songs. You kind of get a second, not a second chance, but you get to reinterpret it.
Yeah, or recontextualize it and stuff.
Yeah. Obviously, people are like, hey, I want this. Maybe some you don't have to do that. I'm just curious if your feelings about the painting change.
Yeah. I would just kind of do sort of free-form, random ones. But I think the more that I've done them, the more certain images and patterns kind of come up. But there are people who would request a specific kind of image or a specific kind of theme. And, for years and years and years, I've done a lot of commissions for all sorts of different people. So I've been really used to doing that and talking with customers and trying to get an idea of what they want. But then there have been some in this last drop that I did. Some of the remarks were just really personal and fascinating and really interesting to hear these customers kind of tell these really personal, intimate stories about a certain event that happened to them, or something where they want a particular image to reflect a family member or something like that somehow. And so using the Tool poster to communicate, the love for a family member has been really kind of interesting and fun. But yeah, really interesting.
It definitely is, because we obviously had, some correspondence before actual call. This is the first time we've talked voice to voice. I'm going to get a remark from you, which I'm going to pay, which I'm going to pay for, audience. I'm not getting it for free. I'm paying for it. But I thought about this question earlier about maybe, and maybe this is just fantasy for me, and maybe it applies to what you were talking about, but I have this image in my brain that you're like, okay, this is what I might do for this guy. And then I was curious if maybe our conversation now may have changed what you may or may not do, because I'm not going to tell you to do any. I kind of want whatever this is to maybe inspire what you do as a remark.
Hey, yeah.
And
I would, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I'd be curious to, I'm more interested in that.
Great. Well, yeah, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Cool.
I'd love to. Then you kind of pull out little elements of emotions that you felt about the experience, and then I kind of go through my little image bank in my brain, little reference bank, and apply those to the emotions, and then eventually over time and kind of sketching things out beforehand sometimes, or I'll just doodle on the poster as it comes, and then the image sort of shows. But yeah, I would love to talk to you more about that afterwards. Yeah.
The only requirement I have is as long as there's a spiral somewhere in there, because this is Spiral Out Podcast. That's all I'm.
Oh yeah, well there you go. That's a good start. Absolutely.
I felt like this went too quickly. I feel like we could have gone on for a long time.
Oh yeah.
You have a whole universe of art.
And
again, I think we could spend more, time doing that, but we only get an hour before I think before I think people go, all right, I'm done.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what? When Tool goes on tour next time,
I'm gonna buy you a ticket.
Poster, you'll have me. Yes, please do.
I will do that for Tool. I will pay that debt for them. The next time Tool plays, you're in Minneapolis, right?
That's right. Yeah.
We're going to Tool together in Minneapolis.
All right. That's
or the closest, and I'm not kidding. The closest vicinity we have to there.
I would love that, man, and I'd love to meet all the collectors too.
I'm sure there are a bunch that would love to meet you as well. And you say that, but if they know you're at the show, they're going to show up with their prints. And they're going to go, hey, can you sign this?
Duly noted. Then I will carry that information with me and keep that in mind to figure out a way to turn people down.
Carry a nice pen is what I would say. Learn how to do your signature in one swoop.
Yeah, that's right.
Or have your Venmo ready. I'll sign it. it'll be $16, please. Uh,
Yep,
Again, thank
exactly.
you so much for taking a chance on
Oh,
a
thank you.
podcast that didn't exist when I asked you.
And then it did. That is really crazy. Congratulations.
And I would love to have you on again.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where you're gonna take this. It's very cool.
So again, thank you, Alex Kuno. This was an amazing interview. Where can people find your stuff?
Oh well, thanks again for having me. I'm going to be building a new website here soon. So at the moment, you can see like a lot of my in progress stuff and my finished paintings and little doodles and experiments on my Instagram page. Instagram Alex Kuno, one word, and I've got a lot of stuff in my Etsy shop, Etsy/shop/Alex Kuno artwork.
I'll put the links in the description of the episode. So go support an artist that everybody likes. So support Alex Kuno, support the podcast. And again,
Support me.
Yeah, support him. Please. Again, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. How great was Alex Kuno? That interview was insane. He is such a talented artist. I know we didn't really touch on this a bunch in the episode, but his remarks are bananas. They're just crazy. He's going above and beyond and doing some really amazing, intricate, interactive things with his San Antonio poster. If they're still available, you'd be lucky to get one. So go get one and go buy his other art as well at Alex Kuno on Facebook and Instagram. Go to his Etsy page, Etsy/shop/Alex Kuno. Give it up for that guy. I am forever grateful for him coming on the show. He's now one of my favorite people. Can't say enough great things about that guy. That guy's doing awesome things and is going places for sure. So as promised, I thought it'd be interesting to maybe do some quick news-related things that apply to the podcast and Toolaverse. So, Alex Gray posters have been dropping at a pretty reasonable price. Get those at the Cosm shop. Cosm? I don't know. Anyways, they're awesome. I got myself in Auckland. Other artists are doing their drops too. Adrian Cox posted about his. Just make sure if you're trying to get one of those artist drops or remarks, you go look them up. They're all doing amazing things. So all you got to do is look on the poster. Their names are there. Look them up online, Instagram, Facebook, websites. If you want a remark or you want an artist sign print, it's not that hard to find. Nine Inch Nails is coming up. Pucifer's coming up. Deftones are coming up this month. I'm really excited for that. Reach out to me if you're going to Deftones in Vegas. I'll be there. Let's chit chat. I'll probably be doing an episode on it. So again, thank you everybody for listening. Episode 3. We've been getting a lot of love. I wanted to do a couple of special shout outs to people that have really been supporting the podcast and even going as far as to helping out. First and foremost, thank you, Brian Paulson. This episode, he did a lot of research on Alex Kuno. He did some deep dives, sent me a lot of stuff. I can't be more grateful. Joe Smith, you've been very helpful on the podcast lately. Thank you, new friend. And a special thanks to Rob Whitlock. He sent me a beautiful, great message about how much he liked the podcast. A lot of people have been sending me messages here and there, but Rob really took it beyond, and so thank you. And thanks for everybody that has been listening. Keep listening. Follow us on Instagram at Spiral Out Pod. Follow us on Facebook at Spiral Out Pod. Go to our website, spiraloutpodcast.podbean.com. We'll see you next time. Spiral out.